The Pacers fall to the Cavs in a good case scenario loss. The game was fun. Some good guys shined, but a bad loss in that the process at the very end of the game was super poor. Going to break down the game and what the heck went wrong for the Pacers at the end. Plus, the Pacers have experimented with some fun and interesting four-guard lineups that I think they should push for more down the stretch of the season. We'll talk about it all today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers as always. My name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and the West Side Community News. And today, we're talking Pacers Cavs, a strange but awesome fun game. Pacers lose by 3 on the back of a very boneheaded decision at the end of the game from the team, but really they blew it in the final minute in general and made some mistakes throughout the whole game. And it was a fun game. Tyrese Haliburton and Darius Garland went back and forth. It was a super fun game. Pacers lose by 3. Kind of best case scenario, helping the Cavs make the playoffs and getting the Pacers an extra first-round pick. Pacers lottery odds continue to climb. Obviously, though, for a wins and losses team, learning to win a close game would be extremely nice for them. But they lose. We'll talk about the game, talk about what happened at the end. And then we've seen it now for 4 different games. The Pacers have tried a lineup that features 4 very tiny guards. I want to talk about those lineups, why I like them, and why I like that the Pacers are experimenting with them. What happened in the game? Always got to start there. Pacers fall to the Cavs, 127-124. What a game it was. Pacers, great second quarter with 39 points, great third quarter with 35 points. Their defense was ramping up. And then in the fourth, Darius Garland said, F this, F the Pacers, I'm winning this basketball game. Completely took over. He finished with a career-high 41. He took 26 shots, 13 assists. Cavs dominated by 18 in his minutes. It was insane. Insane how good he was. He just completely dominated down the stretch. I'm trying to look up how many points he had in the fourth quarter alone from the final box that were provided from the teams. In the fourth quarter, Darius Garland had 21 of his points in the fourth quarter alone. Completely dominant performance from him. Pacers had no answers, and that was the difference because really throughout the rest of the game, they found a way to get it done. And even in the fourth, the Pacers had a lead. They were up with about a minute to go. They were up early in the quarter. Right when the quarter started, they were up by 10. That was their biggest lead of the game, opening the frame. And yet they still just couldn't get it done. Cavs, valiant comeback, and the Pacers fall short right at the end. I want to talk about the end in a full segment because a lot of blunders happened that the Pacers need to learn from. But that's where this game was lost. The Pacers had it a couple times, and they just couldn't get it done. But in general, a lot to like in general for the Pacers in this game. First and foremost, Isaiah Jackson, only 3 fouls. 2 of them were really early, but he took that down for the rest of the game. 6 for 7, 12 points, 8 rebounds. He was wonderful. Buddy Hield, 6 shots. Was not forcing it. 8 assists, 14 points, +1. If Buddy Hield has more assists than shots taken, he is going to be having a positive impact more often than not. He hit all his threes. He was really good. Tyrese Haliburton does exactly what the Pacers need him to do. He was aggressive. He was looking to shoot. He was taking more layups than he usually does. 25 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds. They won his minutes by 4 points. 16 in the third quarter. These are the Haliburton games that the Pacers front office, that Rick Carlisle, that Haliburton himself, the rest of the roster wants to see. This shows that he's growing. This shows what he can be in the future. This is the blueprint for what the Pacers can hope they have with him. He was hitting threes in this game when he was raining hellfire on the Cavs in that third quarter. Again, driving him in the lane, hitting those floaters, getting all the way to the rim. He doesn't shoot layups too much. James Boyd, the Indy Star, pointed that out to me. We were talking before the game, and I never really noticed that before that moment. Credit to James, but he actually took 2 interesting layups in this game. And you know who continues a reign of terror as a good player? His second straight really good game. Goga Bitadze, 15 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, hit 2 threes. He's killing it from 3 since the All-Star break, 6 for 10 from the field. Really finding a role and finding a niche and deserving minutes for this team, exactly what he needs. And like I said, with him, he was struggling, certainly compared to his expectation, but people were too critical because of how he is. He's very much a rule follower in games. He has his reads and he goes through the progressions. And in football, he'd be a terrible quarterback because it'd be very obvious what he was going to do. In basketball, it's more free-flowing and chaotic, he can get away with that. And recently, now that he's kind of figured out his teammates a little more, figured out the timing of playing with guys, when he's supposed to do the stuff that he is such a rule follower for, it's really helping him click and kind of jive with his new teammates and be more involved. His screening looked a little better in this game. His defense looked solid. They won his minutes as well. So 2 straight effective games for Goga. I have to imagine he'll continue to get minutes. And noteworthy to me, Jackson got his 2 fouls early in this game. Isaiah did. And Goga came in instead of Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith still ended up playing more minutes than Goga. And Jalen Smith will be the subject of a ton of the second segment of the show. But it was cool to see Goga get ahead of him after what he did rightfully well against the Wizards. Jalen Smith did play a lot and played pretty well until, again, a play at the end that we'll talk about in great detail. Hit half his threes, 5 for 9, 15 points. Dwayne Washington, 6 for 8, 15 points. He hit half of his threes as well. He has really had a couple nice games in a row after mightily struggling prior to the last couple games. So that's a lot of guys, right? I just said Isaiah Jackson, Buddy Hield, Tyrese Haliburton, Goga Bitadze, Jalen Smith, Dwayne Washington. All those guys played well and up to their standard. And yet the Pacers still lost because they got some stinker games from other guys. O'Shea Brissett, his 3rd rough game in a row, 2 for 8, only 5 points for him. He was the only player who played for the Pacers in this game that did not score in double figures, which is fascinating. His defense is still effective. His team defense is still effective. Carlisle still continues to turn to him. But something about his cutting and his shooting that was really making him an effective piece for this new-look Pacers team that has all come together since the trade deadline has kind of gone away. His shots kind of escaped him, and he isn't playing as well. And Terry Taylor's not playing. Perhaps they tried to balance out those power forward minutes a little bit. Malcolm Brogdon, he was killing it the last couple of games, getting to the free throw line, hitting threes, being big late in this game. He was not that in this game, did not do well. Well, he sort of did well at the end. I think he's being a little miscast, but 6 for 15 for 12 points. More shots than points is always bad. That'll happen when you take 0 free throws, miss both of your threes. So Brogdon, look, he had 12 assists, right? He was doing a good job distributing in this game. Guys were hitting threes off of his passes. Pacers hit 50% of their threes, but in general was having trouble being the Malcolm Brogdon that was so successful over the weekend and really into last week. So he played okay, I think, but his defense was a little off in this one. He could not contain Garland at all. His shot wasn't falling. In general, a rough game for him, and they needed him to be better. If he was even okay, because he was below average in this one, they probably would have won, but they didn't get that from him. And then one more guy who did not play well, but million reasons. Back from injury, Chris Duarte, his first game in about a week, a little over a week, 4 for 14 from the field for him. He gets the greenest of lights. They're growing pains with him. His shot still looks good. He buried a 3. The form was fantastic. He had 11 points. He played, again, okay. There's expected to be some wrinkles with him as he works his way through this toe injury. He was grimacing a lot in this game. So I think Chris Duarte, this break between – they have a long gap now, the Pacers do, after this loss. This break will really help him recover and get some practices in with this team. And in general, for a lot of these young guys, Duarte, Washington, really the whole team that's playing, having this break will be a good opportunity for them to practice 2 or 3 days in a row and really get a really solid or better feel for each other and talk about stuff that is or isn't working on the floor. This is a big week for the Pacers. They don't play again until Saturday now, so good opportunity for them to grow together, get a little healthier. Lance was out for this game, although it sounds like he'll be ready to go this coming weekend. So this is a big opportunity this week for the Pacers to get some continuity, get all regrouped and really grow. Because this game, they had good performances from a lot of guys, but they couldn't shut down Garland. They completely threw it away at the end, and they had some rebounding faux pas. 14 offensive rebounds for the Cavs, and the Pacers could not stop fouling. 20 fouls, 17 turnovers for the Pacers. That will basically never do it, even when you have 35 assists and hit half your threes. So some stuff to like for the Pacers tonight. Good offense. Got good performances from guys who needed some confidence boosters or in general were just not playing particularly well. But it's the 2022 Indiana Pacers. Poor defense, poor clutch play, and not quite everybody reaching the role that they needed to. And they lose again. Now, this was probably the most – this is weird to say, especially from me who hates that tanking is kind of rewarded in the NBA. That was probably the most important loss for the Pacers the rest of the season because they owned that Cavs first-round pick, and getting the Cavs closer to the playoffs or closer to clinching it without having to go through the play-in where things become way scarier is good. The Cavs get a win. They definitely looked little clunkier without Jared Allen. It was their first game. Perhaps they'll grow into it a little more. But helping them along, helping them get win 38 as they push for that 6th seed or whatever they end up with, could end up being a boon for the Pacers. And obviously them losing is somewhat helpful at this stage of the season, as they would like to get the highest pick possible while also learning some winning habits. So that was the most important loss for them. They don't play Cleveland again. There might be some other games where, it's kind of helpful depending on how the rest of the standings shake out. But kind of we'll see. Their next game's against San Antonio, who has a weaker record. And then after that, they play a ton. Well, Houston's in there too, but they play a lot of decent to good teams, or teams that are trying to win basically for the rest of the month until they play Detroit the beginning of next month. So the most important win for the Pacers, the rest of their schedule, is Toronto on March 26th. That will also help the Cavs make the playoffs. Well, I'll talk about all that on a later show. What happened at the end of this game? How did the Pacers blow it? They were ahead late, and they threw it away again. Where have you heard that story besides, their last 2 or 3 games in a row? Let's talk about what happened at the end, why it happened, what the Pacers can do better in those situations. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about the great people over at PrizePicks. Are you looking for a daily fantasy option for the NBA? Then you need to try the award-winning app PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy. It's super easy to use. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times your entry on any entry. It's just you versus the projected numbers. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's safe. They have fast withdrawals. They have an award-winning app on the App Store and Google Play, and they have a ton of options you can do. You can pick any player, points scored, rebounds, steals. They have mixed sport entries, and it's not just NBA. They've got college football, college basketball, NFL, MLB, soccer, MMA, and more. For a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users. Get $50 for free. $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. You got to use the code NBA when you sign up to get that. An exclusive offer for Locked On fans. Sign up today. Use code NBA, $50 for free if a player in your first entry scores a single point. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen every single day. For your second listen, of course, I'm going to suggest Locked On Cavs. Hear how they looked in their first Jared Allen game and how they ultimately were able to get this win against the Pacers, as they found a way to get this one done at the end, thanks to 21 points in the fourth quarter from one Darius Garland. But the Pacers, quite frankly, they blew it. They lost over the weekend to Detroit and Washington in clutch situations. And in those games, they just, couldn't get a stop at the right time, or just an untimely miss or whatever, like stuff that happens in clutch losses. Now, the Pacers are 3-16 now in games decided by 4 or less. So this is a theme for them. But this one was new. So first of all, they get to crunch time, and they're trying a new group, kind of. We'll talk about this at the end. 4 guards and Jalen Smith, Dwayne Washington, Buddy Hield, Malcolm Brogdon, Tyrese Haliburton, and Jalen Smith. So they're trying to switch. They were really picking up Garland full court because he was killing it. And they're ahead at points late. In fact, they were tied or ahead for a decent chunk of the last 2.5 minutes. And you wouldn't really know it from how people were talking about this fourth quarter. So the Pacers get the lead. They tied up 120 to 120 with 141 to go. Huge Jalen Smith 3 right after a Buddy Hield block. And they did well to get to this situation. They were down by 5 at the 3.5 to go mark. They're down 8 with 3:44 to go. So they really did a nice job to come back. And then they get a stop. And then minutes ago, Brogdon scores. So first of all, Brogdon has already scored inside 1 minute. And now they're ahead. And then they get a Garland bucket. Good, impressive play from the Cavs. He runs full court and easily scores. Okay. Big bummer for the Pacers, some poor defense. Buddy Hield just kind of stood there while Garland peeled around him full court and dribbled all the way and scored. And then the Pacers score again. Brogdon drives all the way to the rim and scores again. Wow, Brogdon scored twice in the last 1 minute. I was kind of stunned with how people were talking about him. I'm fake surprised. I know he played well in the final minute besides his last play. Anywho, they're ahead again with 40 seconds to go. And then they stop Garland's reverse that no one boxes out. Jalen Smith is lost in the sauce. Evan Mobley gets a tip layup. They tie the game. Brogdon gets blocked on a layup after that. The Cavs foul. There's a foul. Darius Garland hits 2 free throws. Brogdon turns it over. Game over. They threw it away in the last 30 seconds. So Brogdon earned the right to me, first of all, to take shots in the last minute because he scored twice in the last minute before the last 2 possessions. Now, here's the thing. I talked about this yesterday. Tyrese Haliburton should be touching the ball more at the end of games, and maybe he should have. He only took 1 shot in the fourth quarter in this game. That's too few. There was also a stretch from when the Cavs were up 8 to the 1 minute mark where Jalen Smith shot and Buddy Hield shot and Dwayne Washington shot and Buddy Hield shot again. Those are the ones that you maybe go more towards Haliburton. Like Brogdon taking 3 shots in the final minute and hitting 2 of them isn't this big, giant, problematic thing. Anyway, Brogdon scores twice in the final minute, keeps them in it. Haliburton doesn't touch the ball that much. But what really happened? Why is this such a controversial ending besides the poor rebounding that allowed Evan Mobley to score? That Jalen Smith foul I had in there that I mentioned. So the Pacers have the ball, about 30 seconds to go. They inbound it. They set their stuff up. Brogdon drives from the left wing and tries to score, and he's blocked. Well, really, it got counted as a steal, but he got blocked by Lamar Stevens. Evan Mobley gets the rebound, gets it to Garland, and boom, he tries to push. He's trying to go score on the other end. And then Jalen Smith beelines from the other side of the court over and just fouls Darius Garland about 70 feet from the rim. And the Pacers were in the bonus. So the shot clock was off. The game was tied. The Cavs would have had to score or draw a foul or something. And Jalen Smith just sent him to the free throw line. It was very odd in the moment. I was sitting next to James Boyd. You can watch his video, the Indy Star writer for the Pacers, about it. And he says in the video, like, why did you foul? Yeah, we were both confused sitting next to each other why they did that because they were in the bonus. So why did he do that? I usually have an explanation for these things, or someone in a post-game media session can offer an explanation. And no one really could in this one. So if you watch the video back and you watch the sequence again, it's kind of interesting because Jalen Smith beelines straight for Garland and fouls him. And Dwayne Washington, who's also in the game, comes from under the basket where Brogdon just was blocked and also is running right at him. And it looks like, Dwayne Washington's a guard, so maybe he was going to cover him, but they had Buddy Hield lurking at half court to cover him. Like, it looks like Dwayne Washington's headed to foul him too. And I don't want to criticize Dwayne Washington for something he didn't do, but that's what it looks like he's headed to do. So Jalen Smith fouls him. It looks like someone else is. And the second the foul happens, Buddy Hield is flabbergasted and Tyrese Haliburton's flabbergasted. So maybe two players, for sure one player thought, I need to foul right now. And for sure 2 players, and probably Brogdon, who was kind of emotionless during all this, were on different pages of what should be happening. So it was kind of confusing. Carlisle says after the game, that's on the coaching staff. We've got to make sure guys completely understand the situation. And I get why he says that. He's got to communicate, don't foul, especially we're tied. We're in the bonus. So the only thing I can think of is the Pacers thought they were not in the bonus and that they had a foul and they could sub because they did have this tiny 4-guard unit in, whereas the Cavs had, like I said, Dean Wade's in there. He's kind of bigger. Lamar Stevens is a decently sized body. Like, if they foul, they can bring in O'Shea or Terry Taylor or someone stocky enough in that situation. But they didn't have a foul. It doesn't matter. So they go straight to the free throw line, and they didn't sub on the free throws, right? If they had subbed on the free throws, then maybe you'd think that, but they needed guys in for offense. So perhaps it was different, but very weird foul. I didn't get it. And so then Jalen Smith, comes up on the stand and he gets the same question. Hey, what happened? The coaching staff says this is on us. What do you think? He's like, no. Jalen Smith says, I'm not letting the coaching staff scapegoat themselves. That was on me. He says it's his fault. He didn't know what he was doing. It's a learning experience. They'll talk about it. So all this to say, my original theory was when I saw Dwayne Washington that somehow there was a miscommunication in the huddle. Some people got the message, don't foul. Some people thought they should foul. But I think what happened is Dwayne was coming to double Darius Garland with Buddy Hield so that he would have the ball out of his hands because having a killer fourth quarter. And they were going to try to get the stop. And Jalen Smith just lost in the moment, made a foul he shouldn't have made. That's what I think happened now that everybody's spoken and we've seen the end of the play. Jalen says he needs to forget it and move on, and his teammates have all told him to forget it and move on, and they lost it. They probably would have lost either in overtime anyway because Garland was feeling it or on that last possession. But he's like, yeah, it's tough to forget and move on. It's a boneheaded play. Shouldn't have done it. So tough moment for Jalen Smith. Tough sequence for the Pacers, who go from up to at 2 different moments. They were winning by 2 in that final minute and were met with, they missed an offensive rebound after stopping Garland and couldn't stop Garland going full court in 6 seconds. Like they had some really rough moments at the end of the game. And still, Lamar Stevens misses a free throw, and they had a 56-foot chance from Haliburton to tie this game at the end. Obviously, did not go the way that it was expected. But, yeah, a lot of tough moments for the Pacers at the end of this game, despite coming back from 8 down, right? So like the lineup that was in was working. This little 4-guard group. Dwayne Washington comes in for O'Shea Brissett at the 3:44 mark, and they're down 120 to 112. The Pacers are. And then they go on a 10-0 run with that group. So I like this little 4-guard unit. I want to talk about it, but I don't want to blame the group that was in because they did a good job tying it up. I'm not going to blame Brogdon, although I do think Haliburton needs more touches in the clutch. In the final minute alone, Brogdon had earned the right to have the ball by scoring twice on 2 possessions before to give them the lead. I just think that Jalen Smith made a young guy play. Dwayne Washington said, we're young guys. We got to learn to be better. He made a young guy play. It was a big mistake. It cost them the game, and they'll learn from it and be better. And Rick knows now that he needs to be a little more straightforward and communicative. I don't know exactly what he meant by that's on me. He didn't explain it too much, but that's my take on what happened in this game. I don't think the Pacers had too many process errors. I think they just had 1.5 really what are you doing kind of plays that really cost them. And that's been the story of their season. Like they're 3-16 in these games now, decided by very few points. And, I know I've harped on that a lot on the show, but 19 games for the Pacers. They've played 67 now after this one. And in 19 of them, over 1/4 of their games, they've been within a possession basically at the end of the game. And if they were 9-10 in those games, that's 6 more wins. They are ahead of the Knicks. They are 2 games out of the play-in. Now, that's not a good season at all. Being 2 games out of the play-in after 67 games is a bad season, actually. But that at least is sort of close to the margins that they're going for and they were aiming for before the season. So these close games have been killer. It's something they need to work on this season. And in a wins and losses situation, a lot of lessons at the end of this game. Let's talk about that group that was in for the Pacers at the end. Like I said, I want to talk about it. I think it's interesting. I asked Dwayne Washington about it after the game. But before we get to that, let me tell you about the great people over at Built Bar who are making the best tasting protein bars ever. They are my favorite protein bars because they come in so many flavors. They're 100% covered in chocolate, and they're good for me. Basically, every box I would want to check for a protein bar. Is it good? Yes, it's very good. Does it taste like something I want to eat? Yeah, it literally is a candy bar. Does it come in a variety of flavors instead of just one chalky crap like the ones you buy at the store? Yes. There's a peanut butter brownie one I love. There's a cookie dough one that's delicious. There's a mint brownie one that's really good. There are a bunch of puffs ones that marshmallow flavors in them. You've just got to try Built Bar. Low calorie and high protein as well, so they're healthy. You can replace a meal with them. You could replace a snack with them. You could replace a candy bar with them. Whatever. They're just better in any situation. You can see all the macros for the health on their website. Most of them, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. Go try them yourself. Go to Built.com and join the many Locked On Pacers listeners who have told me they love them. Use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order of Built Bars. That promo code again is LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen every single day. Why not go check out Locked On NBA now to hear all the latest going on around the league? I'm sure they'll talk about this game a little tiny bit in that moment. So now, at the end of this game, I mentioned this just a second ago, the lineup in for the Pacers had Brogdon and Haliburton and Hield and Dwayne Washington. Jalen Smith was in at center. In this game specifically, again, like I said, they went on a 10-0 run, brought the Pacers back from the dead. It was a very impressive stretch. In that moment, 8 or 9 possessions tops, they scored 12 points. They only conceded 7. That's a +5, obviously, in 3 minutes and 44 seconds. That's really good. That made me interested in this group in general. And if you go back a week, when Jay Rigdon was here, he also said he wanted to see a group like that, a 4-guard group like that. And I agreed with him that that was interesting. It's cool that his idea is being manifested already. So I thought that was cool. I wanted to dig into the numbers of that. And it turns out they have played a few times before. Now, it isn't that much. O'Shea Brissett was the center with those 4 guards specifically, ironically. So the only time the Pacers have had a 4th guard in with Hield, Brogdon, and Haliburton, it's always been Dwayne Washington, right? It's never been those 3 and Duarte. It's never been those 3 and Kiefer Sykes. It's never been those 3 and Lance. It's only been Dwayne. I think it'd be interesting to see Duarte as the 4th guard in these lineups as well. But it's been Dwayne Washington, Malcolm Brogdon, Tyrese Haliburton, and Buddy Hield with a center for a couple minutes. Now it's up to about 6 minutes. They played with Brissett in 2 games for a total of 17 seconds. That doesn't matter at all to me. But that is interesting. That's really small and switchy. And then they've played with Jalen Smith now for 1 second against the Magic last week, 19 seconds against the Wizards, and then 2 minutes against Detroit this past week, 5 whole possessions. And let me tell you something. The stats say in those 3 games that they've tried it with Smith and Brissett before this Cavs game, said it sucked. 3 points in 9 possessions, horrible. Gave up 12 points in 8 defensive possessions. That's horrible. That looks bad. Those are also astronomically small, like 1 possession samples. And in 2 of those, where it's 16 seconds and 1 second, that's literally just a defensive possession, like whatever. So the numbers mean nothing to me yet. Their biggest sample yet, this game, it was a big positive. And I don't want to sound like only the big sample matters. They all matter. So it needs more time to see if it works. But I do think it's interesting, one, that Rick Carlisle is trying it at all because they need to experiment down the stretch of the season. If Duarte can be one of the guards in this group, I mean, that means a lot for the future of this team potentially. They could mix and match in this way. And 2, I think this is interesting because the Pacers, since I've been covering them, really, so since Paul George, the end of Paul George's last season, have never been able to field a lineup with that much ball handling and creativity and creation skills and shooting all in one group. It's not like any of them are amazing at all of that except for Haliburton, but they can shoot really. All 4 of those guys can shoot between Dwayne and Buddy and Brogdon and Haliburton. They can all shoot. They can all dribble. A couple of them can pass. But now that Buddy can pass, they all kind of can pass except for Dwayne. So the center's just nominally there to either switch or play defense. I love that idea, right? They haven't had the opportunity to play lineups like that where all 4 guys, even 5 if Brissett's at the 5, can all do all of those things. It's a very unique situation for the Pacers, and that's why I'm so intrigued and why when I see in a game like this where everything clicks and, in 3 minutes and 45 seconds, they can be +5 and get really good shot quality and have a 67% true shooting, despite only shooting 3 of 5 from 2-point range. That makes me interested. So again, it went poorly in past games on a total of, again, like 10 possessions, but I think it can work pretty well. I think it can be, and what I think it can be is a really good offensive group, right? We've already seen all these guys kind of gel together offensively. I don't think it can be as good defensively. Your tallest guy, 6'4", like nominally the power forward closing this game for the Pacers was Malcolm Brogdon, but he was guarding Garland. So like there were times like Tyrese Haliburton was guarding Dean Wade. He had like 6 inches of disadvantage defensively there. So I like the lineup because it's very versatile. It's very speedy. It can do a lot of the stuff that Rick Carlisle wants to do. If he's going to coach his team, I think we're going to see more experimenting with those 4 guard units in one big because it fits really well together. It's a good way for the Pacers to just almost blitzkrieg style offense of just, bam, here we come. We can do anything. We're coming at you. And when I asked Dwayne Washington about these lineups and this group they played at the end, he was like, the reason he thinks it works well is because it's all interchangeable, right? Any of those guys can be 1, 2, 3, or 4 on offense on any given possession. Anyone can handle it. Anyone can be on the wing. Anyone can be cutting. Anyone can, it makes it dangerous because then they can pick on the worst defender more. They can bring the worst defender to actions more. It's just a lot of value and they can all do more than one role. So I think the idea is great. And I think that it can be a good, like this situation, you're down 8 late in the game, you need a bunch of offense, a great way to get that. And it's rare for the Pacers to have this kind of ball handling and shooting in one group. It's something I think they should pursue. I think they should pursue it with more centers. Try it with Goga. I know he's slower, but see how he can help with them defensively. Try it with Isaiah Jackson, who can keep up speed-wise and gives them a lob threat as a screener. I think that would work extremely well. Try it with Jalen Smith, O'Shea Brissett. Get Lance in there. Get Duarte in there as one of the guards. Just keep seeing and plug and playing with these 4 guard groups and see what works. Because if this is something that, they play at another big sample like they did against the Cavs in this game, and it works great again, all of a sudden you're like, maybe this is something we can lean on next year when we're actually trying to win and be good again. All of a sudden they could lean on another lineup. They have another style that works. They know the guys that can do it will be on the team next year, especially if Duarte fits in these situations. So, look, it's a very small sample of minutes so far, only about 7, 6, with mixed results. Some games went poor, some games went well. But this is the kind of experimenting the Pacers need to be doing. And they had a small glimpse of success in this game. I think that's something they need to chase and try to see how real that is. That's kind of the not dangerous enough experimenting that I think makes sense for them to be doing for the rest of the season. And seeing a glimpse of it made me go, I want to ask about this and see what the Pacers can do. So that's something I'll be tracking the rest of the season among many Pacers-related topics. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. It was a crazy game, a crazy ending. Very fun to see Haliburton and Garland to duel, especially in the second half. Garland gets the best of the Pacers, but he's the all-star for a reason. They're going to be playing each other 4 times a year for the next couple seasons. It's going to be fascinating to see all those battles. Thank you guys a ton for listening. Tomorrow, we'll be joined by a guest. I don't want to ruin it yet. We're going to be talking, obviously, about the Pacers and some fun statistical stuff about this basketball team. Friday, lining up someone. I thought I had someone. I might have someone else. We'll see. It doesn't matter. It's going to be awesome. Lots of fun guests coming this week when the Pacers have time off. It lets me do some more zoomed out segments about the future of this basketball team. Thank you all for listening. Hope you have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.